All right, let's go. Welcome to eCom Raw Reality episode 17. And in this one, we will talk about ROAS, return on ad spend, specifically for e-commerce brands, because this series is all about Shopify, e-commerce, Facebook ads, email marketing, and so many other things. And why do I want us to talk about the holy grail, right? The ROAS metric, because so many people look at ROAS and think it's some kind of godly metric, but the truth is that the more metrics you see over time, the more you realize that's one of the worst to actually focus on. And let's look at an example, a real life example. You or me, let's say we are consumers, which we are, let's be real, right? We consume by either buying phones, buds, notebooks. Let me show you. I have here a notebook or other gadgets, right? And for example, if Osmo, right? DJI, they have the DJI Osmo Pocket. So with what I'm filming right now, or actually, let's say Apple. This is an extreme example, but let's say Apple, right? They have a marketing department. They do paid ads. And do you think anyone at Apple, and this is definitely a different type of brand, but do you think anyone at Apple tracks the actual ROAS on a short-term basis, meaning that they are expecting you to see an ad today and buy by tomorrow or the same day after you click? Is that something that usually happens? Or in most cases, you see an ad. Today is Wednesday when I'm filming this, so it's April 2nd. And will you buy this right now? Or do you also have a life, work, friends, messages to check on your phone, on the old phone that you already have, right? And so many other things. Will you actually buy right now or tomorrow? Or maybe on Friday when you might consider it? What if on the weekend you actually have a gathering with your family? Will you actually think about the iPhone, the MacBook that you want to buy from Apple, or will you actually enjoy that time? Because sometimes as marketers, and even myself, that's how I was thinking in the past. I was thinking of someone clicks, someone buys, that's it. You get a ROAS, you get the purchase. All right, let's move on. Let's make more sales, higher ROAS, right? And I think this is where you see how well versed someone is in marketing by how they think, at what they look, because let's be real here. Even myself, I probably look way too much at maybe MER, new customer acquisition, in-platform, Facebook metrics, and so on, right? And someone else might be thinking, all right, where are we for the month? Where are we for the year compared to last year, right? So even higher level view. And this really matters. How long of a time frame do you have? Because if you're trying to solve something, and you might have had to do this a couple of times. If you have just 1 hour to finish an email, to launch an ad before it needs to be live, right? You have a very few minutes in there, right? You are pressured. It's pretty hard. You don't feel good. And the result, in most cases, won't be as good either, right? Because think of it like this. Where does most of the innovation come from? Or let's say the best results in the world. It's usually either from something that's predictable, so predictable and boring, or innovation, which comes from the fact that someone just walks outside, goes for a walk, and they think about all of the things that they experienced in life and maybe can find that one issue that they might want to solve, and then they also have that light bulb in terms of how they might solve it, right? So what we're doing day to day, most of us, is actually working on stuff that we know is important for other people. We react to what's happening in ad accounts and so on, right? But if you take a step back, and for many of us it's on the weekend, but as I mentioned earlier, if on the weekend we spend time doing other things, work is not something that we ever have time to focus on with a clear mind, right? Especially if someone is married, in a relationship, if they have kids, if they still go out drinking and so on, right? Like time is finite. So if you want to be better at something, it will take time for sure. So that's why there's the 10,000 hour rule, because if you look at ROAS, right, for 10,000 hours, and in the first 5,000 hours, you think it's one of the most important metrics, eventually you realize that even if you have a good ROAS or a bad ROAS, it doesn't really matter. And the reason is exactly what I mentioned earlier with the phone. The consideration purchase for someone isn't right now. Even if maybe Meta, Google, many other ad platforms have spoiled people to believe that it's a linear approach, that the algorithm is perfect, which isn't anymore after that 14.5 iOS update, which was already like 3 or 4 years ago. So no one can use that excuse anymore. Enough time to actually upgrade our skills since then. And the thing is that ROAS is not the best metric, because if anyone, if you, myself, would look at an ad account, we'd see that on some days, there's actually no real purchase. If you look in Shopify, there's no real purchase. But Meta might still attribute a sale on that day, right? And it's because of the attribution model, something that I had a very hard time understanding in the beginning. A few years ago when I was on different calls with, let's say, mentors and clients, and like I was trying to wrap my head around what that attribution window was. Like, what's the 7-day click window? What's the 28-day click window? What's the 7-day view, 1-day view? I mean, it was like something that I was just like in fantasy world at that point. I was like, this must be just as hard as engineering, because it actually is until you understand how the attribution models work. And even myself, I'm not really an expert at that, at understanding attribution models, because there are multiple ways to look at it. And the thing is that ROAS is a pretty, I would say, basic metric, but it doesn't say what's the ROAS. Is it like for a new customer, for a returning customer? Is it actually from that day? Is it actually from like 6 days ago, from 1 day ago? Because if you use Meta, you know that it attributes for usually 7-day click, 1-day view. So if someone just sees your ad, or if someone clicks on your ad and then 7 days later they buy, it's still attributed. And the big issue here is that, for example, if you work with a brand that has some organic traffic, then that ROAS will be multiplied for your ads, meaning that paid is actually assisted, and I would say significantly, by organic. And that's why if you have a brand with organic, it will be easier for paid. And if you have a brand that's only paid, then you'll have a very hard time, because you are the actually the only one, more or less, driving the traffic, being responsible of the sales. You might as well start your own business, right? And this is where it's really important to know what to look at. In terms of alternatives, what should you look for? I mean, there's no perfect number. This is why you need to know what's the brand looking for. Are they looking for new customers? Are they looking for more profit from returning customers? Because you can get returning customers through email, through SMS, through paid ads. And it's not like if you sell to someone once, then you don't need to advertise anymore ever. You know, like I have some supplements and brands that I buy from, and I might reconsider every now and then, right? Like, and I'm a loyal person to like people in general, but also to brands. I have a brand that I'm buying supplements from for 10 years or so, and I know them for like 15 years at this point, and I spent over 10K with them. And usually I wouldn't have a reason to change unless they maybe increase the price way too much, because that was one of the reasons why I actually wanted to start with them. And then of course I do want quality as well at an affordable price, right? But fortunately they are one of the cheapest with decent quality, I would say. So that's where I'm at. However, if they increase the price above what another competitor might have, then I might reconsider. And that's also because they're a big company, so they can actually sell at a lower price. And they can still make a lot more profit because of the volume, right? So for them, the ROAS can actually be lower. And they also have subscriptions right now, and this is something new nowadays, if you have subscriptions. And if you usually make a profit by having a free ROAS, if you consider that someone might buy once and you get them at maybe 1 ROAS, if they buy again, it's actually more like a free ROAS, because basically you paid only once to acquire them, and then they buy again, so their average order value, the lifetime value, like doubles or triples, and you don't have to pay again for them to be acquired, right? So that's why it's also important to have a good product. This is something that I mentioned in another video. And I would say that's pretty much it for this one. Just not focusing on ROAS as much, because it's not accurate in most cases. I mean, if you are in e-commerce, if you do paid ads and so on, you pretty much know it's not very accurate. So that's why it's really important to know where to look at. And this is where experience really matters. So it would take me like 8 hours to actually tell you like at what to look at, because there are so many things. And the thing is that even if you have the list of what to look at, it's like, what is actually really important, right? Because you need to like do 200 things in a day to be like mega healthy, right? But the question is, all right, I'm probably not going to do all of them. What are the most important things? And if we talk about e-commerce, it's what's the money that you put into ads, what's the money out, what's the profit, if you know how to calculate it, because not everyone knows how to calculate it. Contribution margin, gross margin, net profit margin, and so on, right? Like these are numbers that you can always optimize. So this is actually after let's say someone purchases as well. You can look at lifetime value, at returning customer rate, and so on. So you always need a broad set of let's say skills, understanding of business, and you can only acquire this by actually having conversations, listening to videos like this, and then consuming info and even putting it in action on a brand or on your own brand and so on. So without making this way too long, I would say this is pretty much it for this one. If you liked it, enjoyed it, you can leave a like. You can subscribe if you want to listen to more of this kind of videos, which are raw, eCom raw reality, as the name says. And until next time, peace out.